Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Oh, that's awesome.
Guys, welcome back to Construct Your Life. We had to start the podcast because we were already giving away too much good stuff. We're probably going to make fun of Chris today, but that's okay because we love him. But I have the pleasure of having the brains behind the operation, really the fortitude behind the power couple. Wait for it, though. Something happened recently that we hoped that it would happen together, Miss Kara. What happened? Oh my goodness, she got engaged, folks. We finally wised up. How did that? Before we get started, how did that feel?
It was a rush. So the actual proposal, it was kind of funny. I didn't cry. I thought the whole time I was going to cry. I'm a big crier. Didn't cry. Not even one ear or one eye. Not even a drop. But I went into shock. My legs started shaking. My body started shaking. I couldn't really breathe. I went into full on shock. So how it felt inside was just magical. The whole way he did it was perfect. And the way I saw him, it was amazing. It was everything that I've been waiting for the past 2 years.
Well, you know what's interesting? I was thinking to myself, where are we going to go on this? And I feel like we kind of set the stage for it off. You're a mom, you're in law school right now. The real estate business that you and Chris working together is taking off, among other things with development. So much exciting stuff. You're about to move across the country. I mean, so many, and you got engaged. I mean, so many good things going on. But what I want to ask first is who are you? Where did you come from? Start with your story where you want to kind of give a little background.
Yeah, that's exciting. I was thinking about that. I was like, who am I? I kind of forget. I'm just mom of two. And that's the way you introduced me is exactly how I introduce myself to people. But then I forget there's actually this, underlayer of me. So I was born and raised in Mukilteo, Washington, until I was 9. And then my family moved. I'm the youngest of 7. My family moved to Texas for a short stint. And then when we moved back up to Washington after about a year, we moved to Fulton, Washington. So most people probably don't know where that is. It's a very, very small town. It has about 4,000 people. Well, it had about 4,000 people in it by the time that I graduated. I think it has maybe 5,000 now. So that's how I was raised. I was raised by my mom and dad until I was 9 until I was 12. And then when they got divorced, I was raised by my stepfather and my mother. And I went to high school at Fulton, and then I graduated really early for my age. I graduated when I was 15 from high school. And so I went to the University of Washington when I was 15 years old. So I went from a 4,000 people city to a 600,000 people city.
You went to college at 15?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I knew you were smart, but I didn't know you were that smart.
Mm-hmm. Well, also, I'm just stupid. I can't believe my mother ever even let me do it. It was just
Can you imagine? No, hold on. Because I was a degenerate at 18 and 19 in college. Lived in a frat house for briefly.
Okay. I knew people like you.
I can't even imagine being 15 years old and being around those people. I mean, those people are living their life away from home. You come from, 4,000 people. You must have been staring there with your eyes wide open.
Well, I think that's when I first recognized that I have this very weird tick inside of me that just absolutely loves adventure and kind of doing things that normal people would think about and be that just doesn't really seem like a great idea, Kara. But I'm yeah, let's do it. And that was that first experience for me. Thankfully, my college roommate, I didn't do the fraternity route. I don't even think I was even allowed to. I think my age was too young to even do it. I couldn't even drive. And but my college roommate, she was wonderful. She was very just focused on school, really wanted to get into design school. So her and I just really put our heads down. I mean, we had a little fun in like our first semester because both of us, it was our first time being in college, but that quickly was like, no, that's not our lane. We're not going to go down that way. And so, yeah, it was a culture shock for sure. But I learned a lot about myself during that time. So I think that experience was like, looking back, I'd never like my children, if they were 15 and they want to go to college, I'm like, probably like, maybe not. But for me, it was a good experience. It was interesting. I was a baby. I was literally a baby, like hanging out with these people, like you said, who were 18, 19 years old. Like most of the time when people asked me how old I was like, I can't tell you. like these people don't even want to spend time with me.
And you graduated college?
Yeah. So I graduated at the University of Washington about 3 years later. So 2.5 years later, when I was 18.
And then what was the degree in?
Just a political science, bachelor's of art. I knew I wanted to go to law school. So the degree didn't really matter as much to me. Basically, poli-sci or criminal justice was going to be the path.
Did you go to law school right after college?
No, I graduated when I was 18, got into a relationship when I was 19 and got pregnant. And the pregnancy didn't end up working. And so I had a miscarriage. And then after that, I wanted to have another child. So tried to have my son Grayson. He's now 7, almost 7. So I took some time off to be a mom. Quickly was a single mom and did that for a long time. And so that was like a put on hold, but I still studied for the LSAT. I still knew that was going to be my path eventually. I just didn't know when it was going to happen between diapers and like kid stuff. But and then when Grayson was 3, I went to law school.
So what and I know how driven you are, but a lot of people that take that break or life happens, they don't give themselves the permission to get back into life.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Why did you give yourself the permission as you look back on it now when you're almost going to graduate? Because your life could be way different than it is now.
Yeah. Well, that's a great question because I know a lot of people who are much older than me that are in my school that took a break and then never allowed themselves to do it, to go back until like 15, 20, 25 years later. And they kicked themselves in the butt. And for me, it was a no options kind of mentality. It was like, I see other people going to law school with, multiple children. My mom was, although I have an estranged relationship with her, when we were growing up, she was in school with 7 kids, So I just knew, I was like, I don't feel like limitations are, I don't know. Like, I feel like limitations are arbitrary in a way. So it wasn't even like an option for me. I just went back.
I was talking with the woman I was referencing earlier. We were talking yesterday through DMs, my business partner's wife, who's going to come on the podcast. And she says, if you're not, as a parent, inspired by your own actions, then your kids won't be inspired by you.
Oh, yeah. I totally love that.
And my issue is, and I'll have kids in this foreseeable future, is that I want to be a good dad and I want to be there for them, but I also want to live my life. And I think that there's a lot of parents that give up a lot of their hopes and dreams to pour it into their kid, which per se is not a bad thing, but I don't think it's painting the picture of the type of message that you're wanting to give into your kid, is that mom and dad can be happy and chase after their own dreams. And that's probably going to be even better in the house if something is filling them up besides their kids.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, I love my kids more than anything. Like, they are my lifeline in so many ways. But even with that, Chris and we're so passionate about teaching our kids. Like, we have this very attached and loving and present and intentional relationship with them when we're engaged. But we also let them know, okay, it's time for mom and dad to work. It's time for us to work towards our goals. I will ride the bike and the kids will try to talk to me while I'm on the bike. And I'll look at them and I'll say, no, this is my time. This is the time for myself. And I want them to know that, because I don't Chris says this all the time. He's like, my mom was just like, if you want to leave, just go, and my mom thinks like she did the same thing. She's like, if you have an opportunity, go pursue it.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't ever constrained by our parents, like loving us so much that they didn't want us to breathe. And obviously that comes from good intent and love and care. But I grew up in a family, and Chris as well, where we were kind of given that freedom that to just go find ourselves and find our way. And it actually ended up helping us a lot more in the long run, I would say, with the real world. And that's what we want. Ultimately, what we want to prepare our kids for is the real world. It's great to spend time with them now and love on them and teach them inside the house. But ultimately, what our job is to get them ready so that they can go find what they love, and they can find, who they are and what interests them and excites them. And that's ultimately the goal for us as parents.
And something I want to unpack here, because it's so rare to me. And when I met him in Washington, breath of fresh air would be an understatement, to say the least. But this, I'm not saying it's always civil, and I'm not saying that everybody's the nicest in the world, but this relationship that you have with your ex-spouses and the parents of the kids, and now we're all going to move together to North Carolina to support the kids. Kind of unpack that for me, because I think y'all should write a book together. I've never heard of this.
We talk about it.
So just to unpack the story. So everybody has separate spouses and separate kids, right? But the whole unit, the exes and everything are moving to North Carolina together.
Yeah.
All not in the same house, but in the same area to support the vision to raise these kids together. I mean, I think it's such a distant memory this day in society, where everybody's got their feelings hurt and their ego and all their bullshit. It's really the kid. When you decide to have a kid, that is an important thing that you have brought in this world, and you need to respect that sanctity of that relationship.
100%. Yeah. So, Chris's, Chris, as Chris's ex they had a child together, and I came into her life when she was 1. She's 4 now. Her name's Silver. And then Chris came into Grace's life when Grayson was 3, and he's almost 7 now. And so we are just this big blended family at this point now, at this age. But when it first happened, I mean, we were all young, and I mean, relative, right. It was just 3 years ago, but we were young, with our wisdom. We were young with our maturity and our life perspective and parenting knowledge, and conscious parenting knowledge, especially. And now, we went through some sticky stuff. I'm not going to try to paint this picture that co-parenting to the point where you can get all 4 people to just pack up and move across the country is this easy breezy thing, and totally easy. You just have to ask and then it'll happen. It definitely didn't work out that way. But the one thing that all 4 of us parents of Chris, Mark is Grayson's father, and then Avery is Silver's mother. The one thing that we all kept together and we're in alignment with was that we care about our children, and that we want our children to live the best possible life. And not to say that Washington is a necessarily bad place to raise your kids, but we thought that there were places in the country that were better, that had different quality of life aspects that were important to us. And once we all had the agreement that what we wanted for the kids was a big backyard and Southern values and the things that were important to us, like the financial freedom to be able to buy more things and take them on more trips and do things that are just adding to the richness of their life. Once we all decided that that was our goal, then it was, there's no ego really there, there's when you focus on the kids, you take the ego out of it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. And I love that. And, I think one of the things that impresses me about you is that you have, law school is not easy. And then all of a sudden your real estate business decides to explode into the other atmosphere.
Dude, when Chris told me, so here's my dichotomy. Here's my conundrum. Here I have this partner who is, we're going to
unpack that, because I think that all my friends and my girlfriends my friends' wives and fiancés should start their own group about how it is to date and be married to an entrepreneur. That should be its own. That should be its own thing. I have no money. We have all the money. I hate my life. I'm great. Tell me if that doesn't sound like, dude. I think I told her a month ago I was going to go drive for Uber. She's like, "Shut the fuck up." We can't.
Always wanting to try something new all the time.
We can't.
I'm like, we have a business we're trying to build here. Why are you like off in the galaxy?
So you're so like, okay. Law school, something I've always dreamed of.
Yeah, so I'm in law school. Well, and here's the thing. I actually found out through law school that I don't actually love law. To be frank, I realized that I am more of I like to be a part of the business strategy session. I'm a very system and processes oriented person. I'm also very analytical. So law school was great for me to hone in those skills. But what I learned was that standard 9-to-5 job where you go through briefs or you're, doing a ton of legal research, it wasn't for me. I didn't love it. And so actually my second year of law school, Chris and I had a conversation where I was like, I don't love this. Should I keep going? And we ultimately decided that it was going to be the best for the long-term vision of, the business to have me get my degree. But then it was that struggle of, I know I don't want to be like the traditional lawyer when I got out of law school. So now how do I like find the motivation to keep going if this isn't really going to be that career path? But I had this, when Chris was struggling with working at his W-2, wanting to kind of jump ship and start a new business, I had this like pull where I'm like, okay, I need to be a supportive partner. He's unhappy. It's very obvious. Like he needs to make this jump. It's what's going to be best for him. But then I'm like, how the hell am I going to support somebody while I'm in law school and like help him pursue his dreams? Because I'm not one of those like partners that just, isn't engaged. Like I'm involved with him. I want to be there for him. I want to be supportive. We are both like that with each other. So that was scary, but it ended up being fine. It's always like how life goes, right? It always seems way more intimidating. And then you put 2 feet forward, you give it your all, and it's really not all that bad.
So for any spouse that's out there, because, one of the many fucking reasons that I got divorced, but one of the reasons is that the vision of what I wanted or what I thought I wanted at the time. I was still drunk. So what I thought I wanted at the time was so different than what she wanted. And at some point it just became, miles apart. And I could lie to myself and say that it wasn't, whatever you want to call. How do you say, I'm scared shitless, you're not going to make any money and you're going to leave your really high paying job, but go chase your dreams? But here's the thing that I do know about, because me and Chris are very similar. If you stand in our way, you will get run the fuck over. And so it's this,
Amen.
it's this lion / tame / keep.
Yes.
How do you play that game where you want to support and you want to allow him the freedom to roam, but you also have to check his ass every now and then too? Because I got to get checked.
Well, and that's where I was just telling him yesterday, I was like, I just feel so proud to be a woman. I'm just so thankful that I am a woman, because I feel like I've been blessed. And not to say that men don't have the same quality, but I feel like Chris and I are just like kind of that classic, like what you would call kind of your stereotypical type of woman is me. And what you would call your stereotypical kind of more masculine man is Chris. And so we really work well together because I analyze him a lot. Like I look at him and I watch him and I anticipate his needs and I care for him in this very deep way because I just notice him. He's kind of in his own world. Like he's just like, what Chris needs to do is what Chris needs to do. And he kind of doesn't really like see, he's got blinders on his goals, which is one of the things that I love about him and I admire about him and I envy about him, because I kind of care about so much that it's hard for me to really hone in and focus, like, this is what I want to get done. But one thing that I learned about Chris, well, first of all, I'll say I didn't have any fears that he wasn't going to make it. Like that man is like, I just believe in him. I believe in him so much. And I knew that if I poured more love and encouragement and support into him, he was going to feed off of that. Because one of the things that he takes really seriously is providing for his family, and also being that man that is, feels like he's kind of like the glue in a lot of ways. And so when he wanted to make the jump, my mind was like, how the hell am I going to support him? But I wasn't scared about him being able to bring in money. That man just like comes up with an idea, attracts people, and then the money just comes. Like he's a passionate, charismatic person. And I love that about him. I absolutely love that about him. But it's hard. It's hard to support somebody when you also have your own things going on. I think that's been the last 3 years has been, this was before I was in law school before he decided to even start this business. And I was still dealing with the same kind of internal struggle of like, how do I take care of myself and take care of the kids and take care of my partner and show up for my family and show up in all these different hats that I need to be wearing. And then also still, stay true to who I am and like not completely dump my bucket out into everybody else. And that took me, I'm still trying to figure it out, but I feel like it took me those 3 years of law school to really figure out how to balance everything.
One of the concepts that we talk about on my other podcast a lot, and I mentioned it to a friend this morning, I think it's very poignant in this conversation. Kind of the metaphor of the vehicle changes. Sometimes I need to show up in a Corvette. Sometimes I need to show up in a truck. Sometimes I need to show up in a minivan in certain environments with certain people. Mm-hmm. But the driver doesn't change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When you know who you are,
yes,
truly and deeply, then guess what? When you ask Cassie, when I'm coaching my women clients, she's like, you sound a million times different. Like talking to you right now, I'm different. I'm softer, right?
You are like Chris. That's hilarious.
Yeah. And then when I talk to my men, she goes, it sounds like you're gonna fucking rip their head through the Zoom. And I'm like, that's what they want. It's two different types of people. And one of my really good friends who's a girl, who's a coach too, said, you have this innate ability of punching somebody right in the face, but also cuddling them at the same time. It's like this. It really is knowing your audience, knowing, like, I would imagine who you need to be in law school and who you need to be in your real estate business are two totally different people, because, the law, let's say college in general, teaches you that you have ceilings. And then in the real estate space, we have no ceilings. Let's fucking go for it. And so it's almost two different personalities per se.
Yeah. And I struggled. You're exactly right. Because I really feel like I found out who my true identity was. Like awareness kind of came to me when I was in law school. Because you got to think I was 24 when I entered law school. I'm going to be 27 when I graduate. So I guess I was 23 and a half. But that was like, for me, that was the years where I really found out like who I am. And I struggled with that because I would wear a hat and I'd put on that hat and I'd be like, no, this is who I am. I'm the mom. I'm the caregiver. I'm the one that just takes care of the house. And then I'd put on a hat and then I'd go into business mode. And I'm like, no, I'm a C.O.O. and I'm, a strong business partner. And then I learned over the course of time that I'm all of them. It's just what, when I need to adapt to the situation and the environment, that's the Kara I'm still me. I'm still me. I'm just this very wide, colorful range of personalities. And that took me a long time to feel comfortable in, because there would be times like when I'm working. Like I have my head down. I'm like, please don't talk to me. Please don't interrupt me. It's nothing personal. I need to focus. I am very ambitious and it's important for me to get high quality work done. And so sometimes for Chris, when he comes up to me and I'm working, he gets a different Kara. He gets the Kara that's, I'm like, not right now, honey. I can't be there for you. I can't serve you. I'm putting myself first right now, or I'm putting my work first. But then, you flip the other switch and then you're the other Kara where I'm super accommodating and very, very open-ended to whatever the needs are for my kids and my family. And so it's a hard, I would say it's a balance, but it's not even a balance. Just figuring out how to transition quickly and jump into that mode as quickly as possible.
The way I look at it as an entrepreneur, you got to have a 6-speed. You got it. Sometimes you got to hammer. Sometimes you got to slow down. Look, I'll be honest with you. The hardest still every day, this is a fight for me. Dude, when you come out of a 13-year marriage, we were 6 months into our relationship, me and my girlfriend, Cassie. And she's like, you're fighting with me. Like, we've been married for 20 fucking years. I'm like, I don't know how to be a boyfriend. I haven't been a boyfriend since I was fucking 20. And so that is, I carry so much from that. It's like, hey, here's my baggage of bullshit. Open it up, pack it up.
Oh yeah.
And then but also through her crazy childhood of drug addiction and her mom's been on drugs and whatever, and being raised by her grandmother, there are certain things that I know that are no-goes in her life. And it is a huge trigger. And in that moment, I have compassion for it and I don't attach myself to it. And that's how I be the partner that I need to be for her. And understand that there are certain things.
I think it's so important. I listened to this podcast a couple of years ago and it's always stuck with me. And Chris and I have had many conversations about it. I forget the name of I think it was Christine Hassler, I believe, but don't quote me on that. And she was talking about, with her and her husband, they were talking about how sometimes what we see in our partner is actually just their childhood self. It's just them as a kid. It's just them as like a young child that feels triggered by something. And so I notice it with myself. Like, I'll find myself triggered by something that I'm kind of like, as an adult, I'm looking at my behavior. I reflect on my behavior and I'm thinking, why did I react like that? Like, that really wasn't even that big of a deal. Why did I take it so to heart? And then I think about it, and I'm sure if I spent enough time processing, I could probably locate that one childhood event that happened that caused, this trigger. But I think it's important that, like, this is, I guess, 2-part, that you recognize when you're being and when your partner is really just being their childhood self. And then you can look at yourself and your partner with compassion, because all it is their childhood trauma. It's like the little kid inside of them that never got the love, attention, care that they needed when they were a child and that they deserved and that they should have gotten that they didn't get. And then the second part is that, like, relationships are just, Chris and I just recently talked about this, and like, relationships are built. They're built little by little, time by time, experience by experience. They're not something that, like, you find the perfect person and then everything's going to be just easy peasy. Like, Chris and I are both very passionate people. We're both very opinionated people. We're both pretty egotistical at times. We both have a little bit of an attitude. His comes on at different times. Mine comes on at different times. And so we struggled for a long time just feeling like, we're like, are we even, like, good for each other? And we're like, of course we're good for each other. We know we love each other. We know we share, like, so many deep qualities with each other that, I mean, our relationship is, to me, it's like pure magic. But there are times when it feels like it's pure chaos, like complete and utter chaos, like to the point where I'm like, what is going on? But I think it's important to recognize that that's where you build. Like, that's when you build the relationship you want to have. You don't just get one. You have to build it. You have to create it. She feeds directly off of my aggression, and it triggers something in her where I thought I was scary. She's scarier. And if I wasn't so self-aware, I could really find hurt in it. But then I realized, like, I'm the one that kicked up the bonfire in the first place. And you kind of just step away, right? And you're like, okay, like, that was not cool. Like, I kind of started it, because one of the things that is the hardest thing for me to do is, my coaching business is taken off and I have many clients, and I am trying to. So one of the jokes is I'm taking a coaching certification. One of the jokes is my attachment and my compassion makes me an amazing coach and also rips my soul in half 90% of the time. Yeah. My attachment to my clients being great, in a good mood, I supported them is what makes me great. And also what rips my soul in half on once an hour. So, but that's the same with her. Anybody that's listening out there, look, I'm PSA to everybody out there.
Hopefully this saves your relationship. You are not your spouse's coach. I'm going to say that again. You are not your spouse's coach. Stop telling them what to do. They're grown up.
So much. I love that so much. You know, it's so, gosh, I'm happy you brought this up because Chris I'm guessing he's probably like you, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when we were first together, and this interestingly has switched. So now I kind of err more towards, and I'm an adaptive person. So sometimes I think I'm like, did I learn this from you? Because I've pretty much raised myself since I was 15. And the way I did that is by looking at other people and kind of chameleonizing myself to them. I don't even know if that's a word, but basically adapting to them. And when Chris and I were first together, it was, I want this done this way. I need this done this way. Because he was, for the longest time, he was a self-sufficient bachelor. Like he didn't need any woman to tell him. I was with his first long-term relationship for a long time. And so he was like, I want this done this way. I want this done this way. And so for a while, it made me feel really insecure about myself, that I wasn't doing the right things. But really it was just coming from, he needed to control certain things because he likes things to be a certain way, like we all do. He was just much more vocal about them than me. But I will say that like over the last 3 years, he's taught me a ton and I've taught him a ton. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that we are working on, even admittedly still now, is just accepting each other for being ourselves. Like there's some things that I'm like, this is just me. I'm a really chill person that likes to meditate and like light candles, and he likes to listen to like really loud music, and he's like kind of crazy. Like and I love that about him. It's just not my style all the time. Mm-hmm. And his style and my style is, it's not the same all the time. And so we are balancing, like not like we're trying to like help each other by being leaders in our own life. And then if he's a leader in his life and I notice something where I'm like, wow, I could really benefit from implementing that in my life, then that's how he mentors me. That's how he coaches me, is by example, which I believe to be the best form of leadership. I do that for our kids. We do that for our kids. And I think it's important to, instead of like, to your point, you don't, not telling your partner who to be or how to be or what to be, but leading an example of raising your own frequency. And if they are inspired by that, then they will, they'll follow. And if not, then that's not their path, and that's okay. That's who they are. And I think that's a very relevant topic for relationships, because I think people struggle with trying to make their partner more like them, but then they realize, like, I would never want to date myself. And I know for a fact Chris could never date himself. So it's important to have that autonomy as well, and that independence.
So I've never said this on the podcast.
Oh no. Okay.
When I got divorced, mm-hmm. I told my friend, who's kind of like a psychic, very intuitive mm-hmm. coach, a good friend of mine. I said, look, I'm 37. I said, I want a 40-year-old woman who has a business, who is a hard worker, established in her own shit, thinks about me like once or twice a week, and that's it. Okay. She looked me dead in the face and she goes, that's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. She goes, what are you going to date yourself? Like, that's the dumbest. She goes, no, you mm-hmm. need a hippie and somebody that will chill you the fuck out. And I met Cassie a week later.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah. And she saw a picture. She saw a picture of her and she goes, that's it. You're done. That's it.
Wow.
That's your person. And the number one thing that you can do as a spouse is give your spouse the space to grow. Mm-hmm. It's the number one thing walking into this relationship that I promised myself. And it's so hard.
It's so hard.
I coach people for a living. This is mm-hmm. what I do. I coach the checkout person at the grocery store.
It's easy to say it. I'm
like, hey, how's your day going? Are you okay? Like, I'm coaching that mm-hmm. person. I coach every human being I read at the coffee shop. I'm coaching them. I'm like lifting them up, giving them inspiration. I don't know how much you know about the signs, but she's also an Aquarius, and you do not tell an Aquarius what to do by any. I could tell her that she could literally not sleep for 4 days. And if I told her you should take a nap, you're tired, she would tell me to shove it in my ass. Like, it's not going to happen. She does what she wants to when she wants to. Right. Okay. But I realized in that moment, in the first part of our relationship, when we were getting to know each other, is that she never had a man strong enough to be able to handle her, that would actually say, no, I'm not accepting that. And I'm not going to feed into your thing.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be here and because when we were describing me and Chris earlier, I want to paint a picture for you. And this is going to hit home. I feel it. I feel it in my heart. So what me and Chris are sometimes is an entrepreneur and an alpha and a hard charger and, run 6 businesses and all this shit. Yeah. Like Houdini, when he's got like his arm strapped in a straitjacket, like we will literally foam coming out of our mouth. We're rustling all around until we finally get to a point where we get so tired that we just give up. And then we kind of like admit it, like the number one book that changed my entire life was The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer.
I never heard of that. Oh, it was Michael Singer? That's my favorite author.
Surrender Experiment, life-changing.
Oh, Untitled Chapter is like my
And so what I try to tell myself is like, dude, just chill, like breathe, let it happen. You can only control how you show up. And I'm not saying that I'm always great at this, but I have learned to focus on my habits and not let these, and this is what I try to tell my clients, these little bitty things that are triggering emotions, they're distracting. They're distracting you. They're distracting you. The client, the deal fell through. The real estate deal fell through. The client didn't show up. Like, dude, like the other day, I lost like $60,000 in 1 week. Like, and it's like, but like, what are we going to do? And then guess what? Yeah. Pound the pavement, got half of it back like 3 days later. Like, that's the game. That's the game. Yeah. And the more that you surrender and understand that the universe is undefeated and the universe will create whatever it is you put out there in the universe. So more that dude, if you nitpicked every little thing that happened in your life as a law student, as running the real estate business and a mom and move, like you'd be exhausted. Like you wouldn't be able to even focus on the stuff that you're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's important to, like, Chris is really good at this. I will say he's very good at, just seeing a situation for what it is. It's just this. It doesn't mean X, Y, and Z. It doesn't mean, oh no, this. It's just here. And if you focus on just this is the one problem, then and not allow yourself, like I suffer from anxiety. And so I have those kind of snowball thoughts. And so I'm thankful for it because it's taught me to be more intentional with my thoughts and direct my thoughts. And my son also has similar thought patterns where I can tell he kind of spirals in the same way that I do. And so it's helped me empathize with him and help him learn how to direct his thoughts in a way that's going to be productive. But yeah, I mean, you hit the head on the nail because entrepreneurship, it's just what you sign up for. It is like this.
You know what? My favorite.
When it's down, you just kind of like.
My favorite thing I've been using is it's like you're upset at the roller coaster for being a roller coaster when that's its nature.
Yeah, 100%. And so, like Chris and I do this regularly, where now we just try to focus on, like, even on our worst day, say, like, we find something happens with one of our properties, it's going to be an extra $20,000. It's just like going to completely eat up all of our margins. The ARV is already way overestimated, just basically a bad day. We still like think about it and we're like, okay, but we still have the freedom to create whatever we want. We have the time to be able to sit there and, some people have to do this on the side and we get to do it for a full-time job. And so we're like, if today, Monday is like this, tomorrow, like we can hustle and work and find another deal and network and we can figure it out because we have that freedom. We have that time freedom. And that's what we love about entrepreneurship. So even when the going gets tough with deals, what I think that Chris was really great at, and I'm recently starting to get better at, is just remembering that even on our worst day, we still get to do our dream job, which is being an entrepreneur, you know?
I love that. So what advice, as you sit here today, what advice would you give that 15-year-old girl going into college?
Oh gosh. I wouldn't change a thing. Honestly, I wouldn't give her any advice.
What would you tell her? What would you tell her that's not as hard as she thought it was, as you sit here today and reflect?
Oh my gosh. That's a really good question. I still, 27-year-old Kara, still has struggles with the same thing. Mentally, I struggle with feeling like things are so much bigger than they really are. And I found that me working on my spirituality made me realize how small my problems really are, and that I don't need to really make them to be bigger than they are. But, you know, I would honestly just say to my 15-year-old self, I'd probably just say, be more present. Don't be so focused on like that next accomplishment or that next thing that you missed out on what's right in front of you. I think one of the practices that I really love that I've implemented in my life over the last couple of years is just pausing and like looking around and seeing my surroundings and thinking about how I'm feeling and thinking about who I am when I look at myself in the mirror. And I feel like as a 15-year-old, I was just like fly by the hat all the time. It was just like, okay, I got to go do this. Like, I feel like it was a blur. I don't even really remember much about that time of my life because I feel like I was just running through the motions without being really intentional about them or reflecting. And I think if I could go back and do one thing differently, it would be to just slow down and like pause and soak up how beautiful life is because it's so short, you know? Like, I know that sounds so cheesy, but with my dad recently passing, I just feel like now more than ever, I just want to teach my kids and my future kids. And I want to live out this like message of, you know, work hard, like work really hard. If you want this extravagant life, work. Like you got to work. There's no way around it. But also don't forget to just sit back and soak in what you have now. You know what I mean?
I have this dream and it's going to happen. I think I'm closer than I think is I want to work Monday through Wednesday. That's it.
Okay.
And those Monday through Wednesdays might be 16-hour days. Doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
But those Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sundays are going to be different, Austin. I truly think that there's a lot of people that claim they work hard. And I think one of the things I love is that this day and age is a prerequisite. Stop fucking wearing it like a badge of honor. Everybody's doing it. Move on with your life. Yeah. But I almost think that there could be, like, you know how people say that there's vacation per them. I think there can be to you in your life. Like, hey, so I go on vacation and I'm really relaxed, right? Like that's like there's two different versions. Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, I think that you can live that in your own life now. Mm-hmm. I think that you can be very intentional about when you're working. Yeah. And I think that you can say, okay, I'm good. Yeah. And then I'm going to go be here. Mm-hmm. And turn it off. Yeah. Yeah. And this is an everyday struggle because, you know, you can always take more. It can always be more and more and more and more and more.
There always will be more. There always will be more.
Always. Yeah. And at the end of the day, you know, one of the things that Jesse Itzler said, like, you know, your son's 7, like you probably only have, 11 summers with him left. No. Like when I heard that, I was like, oh shit, that puts it in perspective real quick. Yeah. Like, you know, and, you know, just recently, I interviewed a guy and we were talking about his kids and, you know, with your dad passing, like, I don't really have that amazing relationship with my father, but recently we've, you know, started talking more and it was a really good conversation. And I just don't want it to be that thing then my ego or my 14-year-old self gets in the way of that my 39-year-old self. And my friend Angelo Cisco says something to me that really fucking struck me when I was on his podcast down at his house. He said a lot of adults, they don't graduate the relationship with their parents. Mm-hmm. He said it's always still, you're a 40-year-old and you're still in it, and the emotions are an 18-year-old.
Oh yeah.
He goes, you're almost 40. Like, get over it. Like, it doesn't fucking matter anymore. And when he said that, like in that moment, I let down like a lot of it. And I hadn't talked to my dad in 6 months, and he texted an hour later.
What in the world? Isn't that interesting how you like open on certain channels and then certain things come your way? That's so interesting.
So wild to me.
I feel like everybody, like, it's just a universal language of most people really can relate to the parent thing, because like, no matter how great or not great or sometimes great or absent or present your parents were, there's like, I think about this a lot because I'm very conscious because of the way I was raised, but I'm like, there's certain traumas I know I just will do anything to prevent my children from having, just because I experienced them. I grew up with them. I just don't want them to have them. Like, it would just mean the most to me as a parent if I could just save them from certain heartache that I had to go through. I know that I can't shield them.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. If my fucking kids touch hard drugs, I'm gonna like, it's gonna be like Mike Tyson, bro. I'm gonna be like, sorry, no, did it, lived it, not happening. Sorry, Charlie. Yeah. But both of us, me and Cassie, both of us. No, like, she talks to, and I'm like, these are still children. Like, her parents are still children. Like, what the fuck? Yeah. Oh my God. I
have a lot of, my dad, admittedly, he was a pretty passive dad. I loved his spirit, and his soul was just like the sweetest thing, but he was a pretty passive father. He wasn't really like all that involved. And my mom and I have always had just a really hard relationship. I think she has a lot of narcissistic qualities, and it just, she provided a lot for us. So I think that's where I learned how to like provide and be nurturing to my children. But there's also a lot of selfishness that I learned from her, and a lot of other things that I learned from her that weren't so great. And so now, as an adult, Chris and I talk about this all the time, because both of us grew up in these homes that were just in a lot of ways really unhealthy and toxic for a child to be in. But now I'm so hyper conscious with those kids that I'm like, I know that the worst that they could have is not really going to be all that bad, because they're never going to have to go through some of the things that Chris and I had to go through. And so I'm like, I know if we can get to the point we have in our life at this stage, after going through what we went through as children, those kids are going to be just fine. They're going to be just fine.
So, I don't per se look up to people in the business sense. I actually don't, to be honest with you, I don't talk business with a lot of people. I feel like, most of my talking is with my business partners, and we're, right. I'm doing a lot in my head.
Yeah.
But just like my business partner and his wife, what I do look up to are good parents, and you and Chris are those people to me.
Thank you.
And that type of relationship and that attention as parents need to be championed, because it's what I know I'm going to model myself as. And then there's like 4 different couples in my life that really, I could care less if Chris makes $2 bajillion this year. It doesn't matter to me, because who he shows up for you, and who you show up for him, and how you show up as parents is what I care about. I mean, I really don't think that me and him talk business that much. And I know me and you don't, because we're talking about life or something. And I just wanted to get people to understand that those qualities are what you should model after, and how you are as a mom, and as a law student, and as a business owner, like, and just as a person. I really just value you, and you inspire me a bunch.
I appreciate that. There definitely are why. Like, when Chris and I gosh, when our relationship is hard, when the business is going hard, anything, we just look at those kids and we're just like, yeah, like that's where we're going to go another day. And I tell those kids all the time, I'm like, I don't care if you guys make $1 bajillion. I don't care if you have 1 billion cars and super loaded and you take me on vacations. I don't care. What I want is for you to be fulfilled and live a life full of gratitude and be kind and respectful and feel like you're living a life with purpose. That's all I want for you. Like, if that means being a really great garbage man, I want you to be a really great garbage man. If that's what your passion is, like, I want you to do that, because parenting is oh man, parenting is a whole different, we could do a whole podcast just on parenting.
Well, here's the deal. I just decided that we're going to break the internet because I just came up with 2 great ideas. One, I'm going to have all my women friends on, and we're going to have an entire episode about dating and married entrepreneurs.
There's going to be a lot of eye rolls. I'm just telling you that there's going to be a lot.
And see, I can stand that. I'm strong enough to stand in that fire, because I'll call myself out.
He laughs all the time. He's like, "Oh yeah, the eye roll."
And then the second one is we're going to do an episode on parenting. I love this. This is going to be great. If people want to find out about y'all's real estate, so what you have going on, they want to follow you, how would they do that?
So unfortunately, but fortunately for me, I don't have social media anymore. So find me through, it's been wonderful. I don't miss it at all. Well, I do miss connecting, but we can talk about that another time. So you can find our business at networkventuresgroup.com, and also Chris Gormley. He basically, his social media is all me and the kids and business anyways. I keep telling him, I'm like, we have our own pretty much like joint business account. And then online Instagram at Network Ventures Group. That's our handle. Where else? Honestly, just shoot an email. Shoot an email if you want to send me an email. That sounds so old school. I sound so 70 years old, but
you know what somebody asked me the other day? What's something that you like to still do that's called old fashioned? And I said, shake people's hands.
Oh my gosh, that is not old fashioned.
And hug people.
That can never go out of style. That can never go out of style. If anybody stops shaking hands, I know. My son, I'm like, shake.
Dude, I get so much grief when I'm up north because I say yes sir, yes ma'am, and shake hands, and everybody's like, what's going on? And I'm like, my mom can hear you, I promise. Like, yeah. So
I say it to the kids. When Silver says mom, I say yes ma'am. And when Grayson says mom, I'm like, yes sir, because I just want them to learn that,
That's so great.
Yeah, that's funny.
Wonderful. Guys, if you like this episode, send it out to your friends. This is the softer side of Austin. I do exist. He's out here. He's not all metal and fear.
I brought him out.
Yeah, and send this to somebody that you think will get some value from this. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Construct Your Life with Austin Linney. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to start constructing your life by taking immediate action on what you learned. For show notes, resources, and more information on one-on-one coaching with Austin, visit constructyourlifepodcast.com.